Hey guys, welcome back to your channel. So on today's video, we're going to be messing with my Maytronics Dolphin robot again. This time, we're going to be trying to change all the seals and everything off of the drive motor right here on the side. This one usually leaks, and what it does is it leaks and it lets water into the bottom of here, and then it burns out your main impeller motor. So what I've seen is pretty much it leaks from the side here. You can see the motor. This is one of the ones I've already taken apart. It gets corroded because the water comes down this way and it basically corrodes the bottom of that one out. So that one's kind of a mid as far as corrosion goes. This one right here is really bad. You can see that thing is sitting forever in the water, and this one I had taken apart and it's really bad. It doesn't spin well, and everything back here you can see is pretty much corroded. This guy is in decent shape. I think this one has a little bit of damage too. This is my third motor. I've actually got 4 of these with one working right now, so I'm trying to salvage and fix all these and basically have spare parts laying around when those ones eventually go bad on the one that's working. So as you can see, all these ones have been kind of taken apart as I've been troubleshooting and fixing stuff. If you guys need to figure out, or if you have other issues like including fixing the impeller motor, I've got another video. I've actually got 2 videos I think so far where I'm taking apart that part right there. I'm rebuilding a motor and I'm doing some other stuff with the main impeller motor, but on this video we're going to focus on this. In addition, once we get to the end, I'm actually going to show you how to change the seal here. This one on mine is the diverter. Not all Maytronics have this diverter. What the diverter does is basically go back and forth right here and move the air side to side from the impeller. This is a wall cleaning version, so it has this. So usually there's a seal in there you want to replace also. So to remove the side one, you basically just go ahead and just pop this clip right here. You want to pop the one on the bottom too, and then after that you just pull it apart. If it doesn't come apart, you may want to just get something in there just to pry right here. You pull it out. It's going to have an O-ring right here, so this is a wear part also that you want to probably go ahead and change out. I do have all these replacement seals and I'll have a part number for them. If you want to order them from eBay, there's a guy, Pullbot Medic. He sells all these kits for like 30 or 40 bucks, or you could order it all on AliExpress. So this is one of my initial robots, was about 2.5 years old, right after warranty, and I think this started leaking right here. I can see it's kind of loose right there. You can see that piece of it. So that's not normal compared to those ones I've been playing with. And I have not taken this one apart. I only took the ones over there apart because those were in worse condition. But what you do is you basically take this off, remove this gear, and I think this is either a 32 or a 36. You actually have to turn that thing, but the problem is this thing is like a single direction, so it's designed to go on one time. So taking it off, you kind of mess up some stuff. On these other ones, I'll show you in a minute what happens, because eventually I end up having to turn the back thing and I mess up the little things inside the molding that keep this motor basically stuck in there. So as you can see right there, it's got those little grooves right there, and they have the matching side on the back of the nut that kind of basically just spins on and it locks it in place with all those little teeth right there, and it's all one direction. It's got an angle on it, so it goes one direction. So what happens is when I'm turning it, I basically end up turning the motor, and then I break all the little stops on the inside here. You can see that side right there is all gone. This side I glued whatever was left back in just to save it a little bit. Same with this piece. You can see it basically broke right there. I glued that back, and then that side right there, there is a little bit left there. But ideally you want to just try to turn the nut, but the problem is these teeth make it really hard to turn that nut. So in here, that's what it ends up looking like. So what it is a 32. So there's a 32 millimeter right here socket. It fits right into there, and you should be able to turn it. Like I said, the only thing is it's gonna be very hard to turn it with this nut right here. So what I'm gonna do for this particular one, so I'm trying to avoid breaking the inside, I'm gonna go ahead and clamp this onto my vise and see if I could turn this without turning the motor and see if it does anything. So grab some channel locks, grab it right at the neck where the two little surfaces meet, because that's oh, it actually turned. So I could feel that thing turning, yeah. Okay, so it did break it loose without messing up the inside there like I did on the other two. So that's very good. Yeah, so the inside of that, I actually saved it. Nothing broke there. The sides here, not really. I mean, right there, a little corner, but that's not gonna affect sealing it back together as far as clamping the clamps back on there. So this thing is actually good now. You can see the back here, everything's still there. We kind of messed them up a little bit, but once we tighten these, we should be good there. As far as this thing goes, yeah, this is definitely something's wrong with it right here where it's loose, because those 4 screws should be much tighter than that. In addition, you see the O-ring right here, that's one of the seals that you want to replace while you're in here. And then this inside, there's a shaft seal, which again, I'll show you how to replace all that once we get inside of these. So these are the 2 motors. That's the one I had previously taken. I actually wrote down the amps when I was running this just for a test. And then here is that one that's much, actually no, this is the newer one that was in better condition that has a loose end. This is the one that I just got recently. They're both the same part numbers. They're the 5521-259-1. They're just different variations, presumably from different suppliers. It's still similar motor and it's gonna have the same seal. So we'll go ahead and take both of them apart and see what's inside. So I'll take the older one that's a little bit worse condition. So the first thing you wanna do is just take apart these 4 screws and take the top brass cover off. And really that's all you really need to take off. You don't need to take the rest of it off for any reason, because all you're gonna do is mess up all the planetary gears in here. You want to make sure you keep those intact. But yeah, this is definitely something, I guess while you're in here, you might as well grease everything up as far as the planetary gears too, because those are also a wear item, and this thing being exposed to water already could have, you know, compromised those. Kind of do it slowly because of those planetary gears. So what you're gonna have is you're gonna have the gears inside of here, and then you're gonna have another gear on the outside of here. So you wanna make sure you kind of keep that all in place and not lose anything or have everything fall everywhere. So right there is the planetary gears I'm talking about, and then these 3 pegs right here are attached to the shaft here. So when you put it back, you gotta make sure those things all go back into those 3 gears. And like I said, you don't wanna like pull these all apart too much, because what happens is if you take this apart and you take apart the back part here, you'll see it's got the same planetary gear and it's got the motor part right here with the actual gear for the motor that spins. So this part does all the slow moving, and then this thing is the power right here. So again, be careful when you're taking it apart, just to make sure you don't, you know, lose any of these gears and let all this stuff fall everywhere. So before I go any further, I'm gonna go ahead and go test this on my test bench. So I've got my power supply set at 24 volts. I did plug in a jumper in here so I get the 2 wires, and I put these little shorting clamps right here to clamp it so I don't short anything out. And I'm gonna turn the power on, and just to see what this thing. So right now, 24 volts, and it's 0.055 with a 1.3 watts. We're on the bench again. So we're spinning about the same as we did on the other one. This is a little bit higher, 0.6063 at 1.5. The other one we were spinning a little bit less. It was 0.055 at 1.3. So I think that's close enough, but I don't know. So over here, you can see this thing a little bit dry as far as the grease and everything on the inside of here from all that water exposure. Same with the planetary gears. This thing did dry out from all the wetness in here. You can take apart this little thing. Yeah, definitely The grease I can see is all dried out, it's hardened right there. So we'll go ahead and basically re-grease all this, get everything back in here nice and lubed up again, and then before we put it all back together. Go ahead, use the same magnet grease. Let's go ahead and put it around the gears, get everything lubed up in here. That's gonna be moving parts. On the gear side, I'll go ahead and take this little spacer cover off, fill that thing with grease. So when you put this back over here, you make sure you line up all your holes and everything, and all the things lines up perfect, because if you don't line it up right, you're not going to be able to get the screws back in, because this outer ring actually locks on the inner ring here, so it doesn't move. So yeah, just make sure, you want to make sure when the screws in, if it screws in, then that means it's lined up and it can go in. So right now it's not screwing in, so it's probably off by 1, 2. So right there, that's the right spot. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pull the top off here. So yeah, you see the planetary gears came off with it, so I'm about to just realign everything, but there is big old chunks of grease in there. I'm gonna go ahead and clean that out before I move forward. So right now you're looking at the shaft on this one, and you can see there is a little wear down right here where the shaft meets the edge of one of the seals, and it's kind of wearing a groove into here. So this is actually not a good sign. That might end up leaking, but hopefully the new seals are tight enough where they can seal that up. So as far as the seal cap goes, you're looking at it right here, and I think that shaft might be wearing right here where the metal is, where it meets the metal. Maybe that makes more sense than it wearing on the seal, because now I can kind of see the groove right there. Maybe it's just, oh, you know what it was? Because the screws were loose, so it was causing this thing to kind of shift and move, which explains why the shaft ended up touching the metal here. That explains it now. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and replace both these seals right here. We've got this rubber seal, the rubber seal right there, so you just gotta pop that off. I've got the O-ring to replace that. Once we get back in here, we'll go ahead and, before we put it all back together, we'll clean off this calcium buildup, this white stuff. And then on the back side, you can see the seal. So what we're gonna do is get a socket that's the same size as that, tap this out on the vise. It's gonna knock this metal piece right out here, and then we'll go ahead and press it back together. So to tap it out, you could use a press, or just do what I'm gonna do is just go ahead and just put this right onto the vise. This is a 10mm socket. It fits right there perfectly inside of there, and 2 taps should knock this thing out. Get it all set up. I don't want to tap it too hard and knock everything on the ground, but yeah, 2 taps knocks it right out. So once you pop the seal out, you can see the size of this thing. This thing is basically a 16mm outer diameter. I believe it's a 5mm inner and a 5mm thickness. But right here we do have the cap right here that keeps the seal in. Go ahead and clean all this up before we put it all back together, and just also lube this up. Clean the inside of this race with some Scotch-Brite just to make sure the seal goes in nicely, and then just clean up the rest of this. So here's my replacement seal. It's actually a 8mm inner diameter, 16mm outer, and then 5mm thickness. So that's the exact size of this guy right here. So go ahead, lube this thing up, get it in there. So what you want to do is just get the inner lining in here, just coat it with a little bit of grease. So right here's the shaft. Go ahead. So fits snug there. That's where it seals down here. So that part where it wore down was actually where it was rubbing the metal, so that shouldn't affect the seal. This thing is the important part right here. So obviously that thing coming loose was the cause of my thing leaking originally. So I'll go ahead and lube the inside of here a little bit with some, so that way it slides in. Good. Slide the new seal in there. It slides right in by hand. Make sure it's all the way seated in here. I went ahead, packed it with grease first, make sure it's filled up, and then I tapped it in with that same 10 or 11 millimeter I used just below the lip. I didn't want to get it too far, just enough to hold the seal in and kind of compress everything. So I think that should be good there. We'll go ahead and put it back together. All right, I got this thing hooked up again. It is gonna spin slower and higher watts and amps because that planetary gear really puts a lot of resistance on here. So it's running about 0.15 at 3.5 watts. I'm gonna reverse it because this thing, remember this thing drives the wheels forward and backwards, so it goes both directions. So what I'm gonna do is just switch the polarity on here by just flipping this thing around. So it's running about the same 0.15, 3.5 watts, give or take. So this should be good. We'll go ahead and rebuild the other motor off camera and I'll see what that ends up being. All right, I went ahead and rebuilt the other one. We'll see what this one spins at. So after initially, so it's dropping down to the 1.15. 1.5, 1.4, so it's a little bit high right there. So it's kind of fluctuating about 1.6, 1.5, 1.6. I'm gonna reverse it. So about the same, so it's a little bit higher than that last one we built. So this is the last motor I had, the one that looked like it was in the Titanic with all that corrosion on the back. We'll see what this thing free spins at. So this one is really high resistance. You remember earlier, those things were spinning at 0.05. This one's 0.2, so that thing is like way up there. All right, we went ahead and rebuilt this one for the hell of it. Let's see what it spins at with the gears in. So started off about 0.25, kind of dropping down to 0.21, 5 watts. So definitely a little bit higher amps than that other one, because the last one we did was what, like 0.16, and we'll see if this thing drops down any. But yeah, that I'm wondering if that high resistance has anything to do with just how beat up this motor is back here, and whatever's inside here. It's probably the brushes or even the capacitors might be bad. That's causing it to go higher amps than normal. But it's dropping down to 0.18 now as it spins. So reverse the polarity. And I had written 0.18. That was before I had taken it apart, rebuilt, and greased everything up. So it's hitting around the same as it was before. So definitely higher than normal. I probably wouldn't want to use this with the new board or the existing board. I might end up burning that out, or it might not even go after initial startup because of the high amps. But it's dropping down to 0.7, 0.75, so it might be within the range, who knows. So next thing, to put all these motors back together, we'll go ahead, put in the new O-rings and tighten them down. So I've got these right here. I ordered again all this stuff from AliExpress. Yeah, we'll go ahead, do the oldest, dirtiest one right here. So the new O-ring goes right into there, fits right into that hole. we'll go ahead, put a little bit of silicone grease around here just to grease that up. A little bit there, just spread it around so it gets a nice mating surface. Once we do that, go ahead, get it into here, fit it in between those two spots. Just kind of make sure it's snug. Check again, make sure the O-ring sits properly inside the channel. This one's kind of popping up a little bit, but I think once it presses down, it should seal up. I'll go ahead and get the cap. This one has that red stuff on it, so I know it's for this one. So go ahead and screw that on. And again, screwing it on is much easier than taking it off, but later on I'm going to go over there with the vise. Go ahead, hold that with the channel locks again, and just make sure we get this cranked down so it doesn't move and it's nice and tight there. All right, like I said, go ahead and grab the thing by the neck right where the thing joined. I think that's pretty much as tight as it goes. You heard all the click, click, click. That was just getting that thing in there. But yeah, I don't think this thing is gonna move or get anywhere. It's sealed inside here. So here's that new O-ring I got from AliExpress. Here's the one that we took out of there. We'll go ahead and swap this thing out. I doubt this thing has gone bad, but just because we're changing everything else out, I figure we might as well change this O-ring too, just in case, to make sure that it doesn't leak from that big spot. But usually these things are pretty good at sealing. But go ahead, put silicone all around this and get it back into the housing. So again, go ahead and just get your silicone around here. And then for this one, since it's on the outer lip, we also want to make sure we lube this side of the housing. Make sure we get that in there, and then just slide this guy in, line it up. So the last seal that may cause trouble is this right here. This is basically the diverter seal that goes on top. There's a little motor that bolts onto the bottom there. I've taken off. So it's a pretty easy one. You just pop this cover off, and it's another just regular ring seal that goes in there. So this is the replacement seal right here. It's basically a 22 millimeter outer diameter, 10 millimeter inner diameter, and 6 millimeter thickness right here. It's NQK, so it's kind of a generic, trying to look like NOK, which is a name brand high quality seal, but this is just a cheap one I got on AliExpress like the other ones. And you can see it's a nice thick seal right there for the shaft, so we should be good for what we're trying to use it for. So once you open up, you can see all that old grease and everything kind of dried up in there. But yeah, it's the same as the other ones. This one comes out a little bit easier. You could use a little pick tool and kind of get it out. It's not like the other ones where you could tap the back out, where it is, because the back is the same diameter. So here's what we took out. Same 10-22-6. You can see the OEM part number. It's a YEI, I believe, as far as that, but you can see that number over here, the A number. That's very consistent with all the seals I've taken out. You can see on the back side between the replacement and the new, this thing is much thicker on the inside. One of the things I noticed on here is the spring that kind of holds the seal in. That's starting to corrode right there. All this grease, I'm not sure what it is, but it feels like rubber of some sort, or some kind of dried up silicone. It's not grease. That's weird. one of the things I didn't realize, there's actually 2 seals in here. So that's pretty consistent with this one too, is a double seal, just because of the pressure on here, which is weird because the side one that we did, that side motor that we did down there only has a single seal because it's on the side, I guess. I'm not sure. This is the seal I took out. This is actually in very good condition because it's on the inside. It wasn't exposed as much as the outside one to moisture, so it definitely, there was no leaks or anything in it. So this thing is pretty good condition compared to the other ones I've taken out before where the whole thing was flooded. But you can see better on this one. It's a YEJ. So this is the diverter shaft that goes in and then meets up with that actual motor there. So what you want to do is just clean off all this old corrosion and all this stuff that's built up onto here with some super clean or something, just to get it off the plastic. You want to make sure this thing goes back to 0. Usually when you plug it up to the control board right here. Once you get this thing back into there, looks like there's supposed to be a set screw, but I don't remember ever taking a set screw out. I think it just goes right into there, and then you have this retainer that goes on and just basically goes into there. So that's all you really need to do to get it in here. O-rings and everything for the impeller motor. Again, I got a whole set of these, like 10 or 20 of these from AliExpress, but they all kind of fit perfectly there. As long as you get the right diameter, inner and outer, and thickness, it all fits. So again, get some silicone grease in there and get this thing all back onto the cap. All right, everything's in. And then we'll go ahead and get the electronics and everything back into here and test it all out. So I went ahead and made all the connections. So all the plugs on here are pretty much only one way to go, but you just make sure all your wire management and routing is good. And then the last 2 plugs go right here and then right here for the motor and the LED on the actual board. We'll go ahead and tuck a couple more of these silica packs right there. This one I'll put around the actual motor, and then this one will keep on this side where the most room is. Side motor, get that plugged in there. The LED on this side plugged in, and then so this bag might be a little bit too big for this. I don't think I have the room for that one. Once you get everything, make sure all the wires are out of the way and nothing's kind of blocking. That's always want to check that, make sure there's no wires getting jammed and everything like that. So you want to just go ahead and snap it in. Initially it takes just trying to get that O-ring to seat properly. This last one you don't want to put in until you get the cord in there. If you guys found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to your channel, go ahead and subscribe to your channel. Turn on bell notifications to get notified every time I upload a video. For all these different DIY projects, if I can do it, you guys can do it. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.